You're about to discover a shocking tale that's been hidden from the spotlight for far too long. Today, we're diving into the tragic story of George Best and his mother Anne, both sadly consumed by the bottle. You won't want to miss this. Before we dive in, let's hear what George had to say about his addiction.
The old problem, the drink problem is always going to be there. I mean, I don't kid myself anymore. I used to think, I'll beat it one day. I don't worry about it now. If I beat it, I beat it. If I don't, I don't. And I'd rather think like that than drive myself crazy, worrying about it.
Anne Best, a woman who once radiated working-class warmth, was known to those around her as a loving and caring mother. She instilled values of respect in her children and was a gifted sportswoman in her own right, excelling at hockey. However, her journey took a devastating turn that few saw coming. By the time Anne passed away at the age of 54, she had become an alcoholic, trapped in the dark world of dependency. It's a heart-wrenching twist of fate, and it begs the question, how could this happen to a woman who had once been a symbol of grace and dignity? Anne Best's tragic descent into alcoholism is a story that has remained in the shadows, known to just a very few. In fact, Anne was resolutely a teetotaler until the age of 44. But what followed was a rapid decline that ended in her untimely death, believed to be linked to alcohol-related heart problems. The drama, Best, his mother's son, explores the complex relationship between Anne and her son George. It covers the years from 1966, when George, at just 19, was already a superstar, dubbed the fifth Beatle due to his immense fame, to January 1974, when he made the difficult decision to turn his back on Manchester United and the pinnacle of football at the age of 27. Originally broadcast on BBC Two and BBC Northern Ireland, the film was shot on location in County Antrim and Belfast in Northern Ireland, the very place where George was born in 1946. Tom Paine took on the role of George, while Michelle Fairley portrayed his mother Anne, and Lorcan Cranach played his father Dickie. Campaigners against alcohol abuse wholeheartedly embraced the film, seeing it as an opportunity to reshape public perception of alcoholism among women. It highlights the plight of, quote, invisible women, those who quietly start drinking at home, away from prying eyes, until alcoholism takes hold, often unnoticed. It wasn't all smooth sailing for the production of this movie. Controversy surrounded the film, with claims from the Best family that the filmmakers had not obtained permission to create it. George's sister spoke out in an interview with the Belfast Telegraph explaining, quote, everyone declined to participate in the filming. The family was asked, but we weren't prepared to give the BBC any information on my mom's alcoholism. She added that as a recovering alcoholic herself, she couldn't support the film, especially since the main characters were no longer around to defend themselves. Barbara McNary, George's sister, also raised concerns about the film's portrayal of alcoholism, saying, quote, it displayed a simplistic and limited understanding of this complex disease. Moreover, there was controversy surrounding the accuracy of events depicted in the film, despite the use of real game footage and interviews. Tom Paine, who portrayed George, commented in an interview that while the film was based on real events, some parts were tailored for television. He also emphasized that as far as the family was concerned, they had no involvement with the film. The program garnered attention from leading alcohol abuse organizations and was endorsed by the BBC's mental health initiative, Headroom. Carrie Davis from Alcohol Concern emphasizes the importance of this drama, particularly in a time of economic recession that has led to increased consumption of inexpensive supermarket alcohol at home. Quote, women drinking at home and the effects on their families doesn't really get talked about, she said. These are the hidden women. Society's perception of alcohol abuse is often shaped by the fear of alcohol-related crimes and the sight of young people outside pubs in distress. What often remains hidden are the long-term consequences of alcoholism, such as chronic liver disease and the devastating effects on families. Anne Best found herself in a situation that would push anyone to the edge. She had 3 children, all under the age of 5, and the relentless public scrutiny became an overwhelming burden. In stark contrast to her previous teetotal stance, she turned to alcohol as an escape. It started quietly at home, but soon escalated to regular outings with friends. Davis makes an important observation. Anne's story might make women who casually pour themselves a glass of wine after a long day at work pause and think. It highlights the insidious nature of alcoholism, how it can creep into our lives unnoticed until it's too late. Now, when it comes to George Best, people might argue, well, it was his choice to drink, and if he suffered health problems, it was his own fault, and it didn't really affect anyone but him, and he paid the price. But with his mother, it's an entirely different narrative. You witness how her alcoholism affected her husband, her children, and those around her. It's a stark illustration of how addiction doesn't just impact the person struggling with it, but also ripples through the entire family. Michelle Fairley, who played Anne Best, sums it up beautifully. Quote, "I think this is the story of a family and how they coped with the decline of their mother. This is the tale of how Anne Best coped, or rather didn't cope, with everything that was happening in her life and her son's life. Anne's alcoholism was a byproduct. She was a very private woman, very shy, and she just couldn't stand the press scrutiny. Drinking was her way of numbing herself and of dealing with all the pressures. It's terribly tragic. Two wonderful people damaged by alcohol within the one family." And perhaps what's most intriguing about this story is not just the fact that Anne drank, but the profound question of why she turned to alcohol in the first place. What forces pushed her to that point? It's a question that's worth exploring and understanding. Anne Best's descent into alcoholism was marked by a profound transformation. Those who knew her describe a stark change in her personality when alcohol was in the picture. Sober, she was a reserved, softly spoken woman who prioritized manners, respect, and education for her children. She possessed intelligence and grace. But unfortunately, alcohol altered her in ways that were far from pleasant. With 3 kids all under the age of 5, Anne found herself in a situation where the press camped on her doorstep and the world's eyes were fixed on her son George. The family, living in Belfast during the time of the Troubles, was thrust into a relentless spotlight they had never sought. This constant scrutiny must have slowly eroded Anne's sense of self as she grappled with the demands and pressures of fame. What's interesting is that the family wasn't fully aware of George's own struggles with alcohol at the time. It was only later that people realized that he too had a drinking problem. Back then, he was young, and many believed he was living the perfect life. In a way, he was a trailblazing superstar footballer, akin to what we see today with figures like Beckham. But during their era, there was no guidance or support systems in place. For both George and Anne, this was uncharted territory, a treacherous journey into the world of addiction. Sadly, George's own battle with alcohol ultimately curtailed his glittering football career. He fought a very public battle against alcoholism, but in the end, it took a toll on his health. He passed away at the age of 59 from a kidney infection, a side effect of the immunosuppressive drugs he took following a liver transplant. In the end, the Best story serves as a powerful reminder of the hidden battles people face. When we encounter individuals with drinking problems, we should all strive to be a bit more compassionate, understanding, and supportive. Not just for the famous figures like George Best, but also for the invisible individuals like Anne, too. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you for watching.